Let's start the session by chanting Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Now, page number 51, paragraph 10. States that should not be attended to. And what bhikkhus are the states that should not be attended to, and to which he does not attend? Bhikkhus, there are those states that are attended to, where the unarisen influx of sense desire arises, or the arisen influx of sense desire grows, where the unarisen influx of existence arises, or the arisen influx of existence grows, where the unarisen influx of ignorance arises, or the arisen influx of ignorance grows. These are the states. These are the states that should not be attended to, and to which he does not attend. To which he does not attend. This he is referring to those who are on, or those who are enlightened, right? Those who are enlightened. Now, when we comprehend these three influxes, the influx karma chanda, sorry, Kama, Bhavatanha, and Avijja, right? These influxes that are, these influxes that arise in a way that we are unaware that they are influxes. They arise as a way of norm, rather than a foreign sort of state, a foreign sort of state. It is in the application, or actually the development of wisdom, that one then is able to determine, to get to know, or gets to know that such states have arisen. Thus, allowing a person through awareness to be able to not give sort of care or give importance to those states that do arise in that manner, right? That do arise in that manner. Moving on. States that should not be attended to. And what bhikkhus are the states that should not be attended to, and to which he attends? Bhikkhus. There are those states that are attended to where unarisen influx of sense desire do not arise, or the arisen influx of sense desire are abandoned, where unarisen influx of existence does not arise, or the arisen influx of existence are abandoned, where the unarisen influx of ignorance does not arise, or the arisen influx of ignorance is abandoned. Now, obviously, that which is able to not support the arising of the influxes, and whatever influxes that have arisen to cut its further development or growth, there is only one thing which does that. That is panya, right? Not even samadhi, remember. Not even samadhi. It is only panya. The panya, or the wisdom aggregate, is supported by the samadhi, the sati, the samadhi. However, the cutting blade exists, or the burning fire exists within the panya, which burns away the hindrances, which cuts away the roots leading or supporting or nourishing those influxes which are not to be entertained. Right, which is not to be entertained. So we are in page number 51. 11. Seeing the truth, He wisely attends. This is suffering. Now, this is relating to how we do not give or nourish or support the development of the influxes. He wisely attends. This is suffering. He wisely attends. Remember this word wisely. This word wisely is not jnana. Why? I feel like, are some of you distracted by anything? No? Okay. All right. He wisely attends. This is suffering. He wisely attends. This is the arising of suffering. He wisely attends. This is the ending of suffering. The important word here is wisely. The rest we know. What is wisely? Remember, jnana and panya. How does a contemplation of jnana happen? Right? How would a contemplation of jnana happen? If you are contemplating with knowledge, how would that sound like in your mind? How would that sound like? It would be somewhat like doing an equation, or following instructions, or following the GPS maybe to get somewhere. Right? Now that is what the application of jnana sounds like, isn't it? You have some data, you apply that data how it should be applied, and then you follow along and you arrive at a result. That is usually how we apply jnana, right? Knowledge, right? Just like we would be assembling something, IKEA piece of furniture or something like that, right? It is in that way. How is wisdom then applied? Wisdom is applied not in the way jnana is applied. That is how this word wisely becomes important. The application of wisdom happens almost subconsciously, where whilst that data might be reflected, the data reflection happens upon what already exists as panya, right? Meaning, if you don't have any panya, it would be very difficult for you to develop panya. If you have some sort of panya, that becomes a base to develop more panya. You get it, right? That is that importance of Dhamma. That is that importance of Dhamma. A loving, having a certain base of Dhamma, which allows you to see through Dhamma's reflection upon the world, allowing you to have now a vision which you did not have before. Jnana is different. Jnana you can apply foreignly. You don't have to know it. You do not have to be an engineer to assemble a piece of IKEA furniture, right? You do not have to be a chef to follow a recipe and come into sort of making a delicious meal. However, wisdom does not work like that. You cannot learn wisdom and apply the Buddha's knowledge as and when you wish. No, this is integrally a part of you when you apply it, or else that is when it becomes jnana. Now, even wisdom becomes jnana. That is how he wisely attends. This is suffering. This is the arising of suffering. There is no application of knowledge here. There is only that wise attention which allows one to understand the contemplation, which then allows a person to excel within the understanding of vipassana. Yes, Dil.
But isn't this yoniso manasikara, wisely attending?
Yes, wisely attending. However, yoniso manasikara is backed by present panya.
Yes. Right? Yeah, so it's like this. He wisely attends because you already have that vibe.
No. Yoniso manasikara is a reflection of already existing panya.
Right.
Yoniso manasikara is not the final product. That's the important part. At the moment of its representation, yes, it is yoniso manasikara. Right. However, Yoniso Manasikara is supported by factors. Those factors are what allows the Yoniso Manasikara to be able to have the power that it does. Right? So we can't say that this is just Yoniso Manasikara. Yes, it is Yoniso Manasikara. However, it exists in a level beyond Yoniso Manasikara. Right? Beyond Yoniso Manasikara. Right? If we think now, for example, let's take Asubha Bhavana, right? Asubha Bhavana. Now, Asubha Bhavana, even things like Metta Bhavana, good tools, good example, but I believe Asubha Bhavana is a better one than Metta to use as an example. We do not really believe, we know it is true. However, we do not absolutely embrace the fact that the body is completely putrid, right? We know it as a knowledge, yes, right? We know it as a knowledge, yes, we know it. However, when we practice Asubha Bhavana, we reflect upon that knowledge that we know and repeatedly psychoanalyze whatever part of body or whatever part of the body of another person or an animal or a creature, and then reflect as Asubha, 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 Asubha. Remember, that preliminary stage helps a person, if touched by samadhi, would help the person to develop, but only if touched by samadhi. Because the samadhi helps whatever which was contemplated to now come down to or be reflected in a way or be understood in a way of cultivating that necessary prajna, which allows for the understanding of Asubha. But if one is walking on the road and just repeating Asubha, 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 I cannot tell you the number of people who have come to me personally, just me, and said, Bhante, it's not working. Of course it's not working. Why? Because there is no support of Samadhi. So it is only data, it is only jnana. So it is really like telling or pointing out, you see a clock tower, you're like telling that's a clock tower. That's it. That's a clock tower. There is a restaurant. That's a restaurant, right? That is it. There is no sort of deeper understanding which is built through it, right? We have a tad bit of wisdom, but when we add in the samadhi, that allows a certain amount of vipassana to certain amount of panya to now be nurtured. With that little bit, now we are able to slowly develop it, gently, slowly. However, we keep feeding it. It is almost like a mushroom or a bacteria, fungus. We keep feeding it, and we have to keep feeding it in order that it sort of keeps on growing. Yes, Samantha?
Yeah, Bhante, when you said we've got to have samadhi, does that mean that the first jhana?
It can be the first jhana. First jhana, it can be the first jhana, it can be vipassana samadhi, or it can be a dhyana samadhi, right? Or it can also be something like a upachara samadhi, which is not a jhana, right? Mm. It can even be a upachara samadhi, which is not a jhana. Mm. A jhana state is a reflection of the suppressing of the hindrances. The suppressing of the hindrances are not a state, are not a reflection of the jhana, remember. The suppression of hindrances is not a reflection of the jhana. The jhana is a reflection of the suppression of hindrances. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
You experience a state of jhana only when you are able to suppress the hindrances through samadhi. Right? That is what leads to that state of, I like this word, nisala in Sinhala, nisala, calm, right? That state of calm, right? It is like that sort of leaf, it sort of glides through the air and then calmly just settles on a lake, right? That sense of calm only arises when the wind is not blowing everywhere. That wind, that blowing is stopped only by that sort of stopping of the hindrances or the suppression of hindrances rather, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. Yeah.
All right. So remember, now this question was, remember, with any sort of dhyanic result, now we pass merits. Merits are the effectiveness of merit passing, the effectiveness of mental healing, right? Targeting another person or even targeting yourself, the effectiveness of any sort of radiation of loving kindness or otherwise, the effectiveness of well wishes, and all of this results in your current state of mind, right? In your current state of mind. With anything that is supported through samadhi, remember, the moment the hindrances arise, all those states disappear, right? Let it be the abhinya, the special powers, let it be your ability to heal, let it be all of these different abilities, right? They all disappear at the moment hindrances arise. Hindrances arise, right? But remember, hindrances are of the moment and are not a part of your existence. Remember that, right? Because if hindrances are a part of your existence, what are we talking about? It is Atma. Atma does not exist, right? None of us are completely good, neither are we completely bad. We have our moments, some sweet, some really bad. That's it. Those moments are supported by conditions. When we pass hate or when we want to hurt someone, that hurt only hurts ourselves. Why? Because of the vibration that we create at that moment. At that moment. But it is said in the cause and effect of electromagnetic waves that when we do have toxic radiation, that toxic radiation does affect another person, but it affects you 10 times more. It affects you 10 times more, maybe even more, right? So the more that you sort of indulge in that toxic nature, in those toxic natures of mind, day by day you grow weaker and weaker, weaker and weaker, right? Weaker and weaker. So do not think, do not think that these sort of vibrations that you receive from other people are powerful. Remember, all you have to focus on is empowering your vibration and empowering yourself, right? Empowering your vibration and self. And sometimes we talk about these things within religion, but remember, this is not a religion, this is a way of life, right? And this must reflect upon, because we all sort of like to sort of look at the news and sort of complain about these things, which is, which might be logically fair with with the decisions that are made and all of these things. However, remember, you're hurting yourself more. You always are. You're weakening your energies. You're weakening your strengths. Right? Why? Because the akusala chitta damages you. Right? And we know that you have a stressful job. You find that your glow reduces. Right? You have a stressful life. You are unhappy wherever you are or how you're living. You see that reflection on your face, on your body. You see it. You see the reflection of those people around in their houses as well, sometimes in their gardens, right? So you do see these things put out. But remember, coming back to topic, the wisely attends cannot be done by just reading the Dhamma. It really happens to really accepting, not because you're just accepting for the sake of accepting, as Buddhists normally do, because the Buddha has said this, I accept. No, that does not work. That does not work. That only goes so far. That only goes so far. How you truly accept is by true understanding and experiential wisdom. Wisdom that arises through experience, meaning you do not have to die to experience or to sort of fear or to sort of, go through that or have some sort of wisdom regarding that. But through being able to let your mind dwell and go into those places through meditation and all of these things that you can sort of develop through your meditation, through the Dhamma, right? That is what is meant by he wisely attends. He wisely attends. So remember, it is not the reapplication of the Four Noble Truths here. It is experiencing the Four Noble Truths. Do you get it? Right? It is absolute experience, right? It is absolute experience. Now there's a footnote. Let's see what the footnote is saying. The Four Noble Truths are here treated as a subject of reflection and insight. There you go, right? It is not a subject of application, right? It is a subject of contemplation, where you contemplate through insight. Remember this word insight, right? Insight gives us the word vipassana, deeper seeing, insight, these words that we have in English. It is almost as if, for example, it's like you have a stone, right? You have a stone of some sort, right? A colored stone. You're not sure what it is. What do? You have one of those sort of what do you call it, where you see inside the stone, one of those magnifying sort of lenses, and you look inside, then you know what it is. Vipassana is that. Remember that opportunities of vipassana exist everywhere, because each and everything around us, within us, is all components that support deeper, insightful seeing, right? Deeper, insightful seeing, right? Vipassana, insight. So let's move on. 11.2, next page, page number 52. Please ask any questions if you have any. Breaking the three fetters and attaining stream winning. Breaking the three fetters. When he thus wisely attends, wisely, remember the word wisely now, wisely attends, in this way, these three fetters are abandoned. That is to say, self-identity view, sakkaya ditthi, spiritual doubt, vicikiccha, attachment to rituals and vows, silabbata paramasa. These bhikkhus are called the influxes that are to be abandoned by seeing. Self-view, spiritual doubt, attachment to rituals and vows. Now, if we are really honest with ourselves, we focus a lot on our egos. We focus a lot on things that equate to that abundant form of, or that sort of that peerless form of enlightenment, the peerless form of enlightenment, because this is where we get our aspirations from. We have received our aspirations from enlightened beings, right? Monks, the Sangha speaks and sort of gives you that inspiration to continue along your practice, right? To continue along your practice through the image of the enlightened being's practice. The Buddha is one of them. Sariputta Moggallana Theros are one of them. All those bhikkhus are one of them. But let's be realistic here, right? Let's be realistic. We are, or we receive that inspiration from that level of that caliber of Sangha. However, we can't be that level of Sangha right now. We can't, we just can't. It is as if you aspire to be a billionaire, right? You're not going to be a billionaire tomorrow. What are you going to do? what you have to do is probably come up with a good idea, come up with a good product, come up with something that you can sell, come up with a business plan, educate yourself, do all of those things that you require to then become or go up in that ladder of finance, isn't it? Isn't it? Right? You all are professionals. You want to become, as a doctor, you want to become, I don't know what is the top, a secretary of medicine, medical, let's say, in the country or something of that sort, or you're a lawyer, you want to become a judge or something. What do? You know the steps that you take. But it is absurd that in religion or in this path of practice, we forget that, isn't it? We often forget that sort of very logical sort of that step, those steps leading up to enlightenment, and we choose and we aim and we are thriving for that sort of last step right at the top, when we haven't even done, or when we are standing on the few starting steps, right? Here, look at this. The sutta, Sabbāsava Sutta, the sutta on this sort of getting on these cankers, on these ashravas, is talking, the first part it goes to is self-identity view, is spiritual doubt, vichikiccha, and Silabbata Paramasa. And Silabbata Paramasa. We rarely meet people, even within this crowd, I would say, to be very honest, we rarely meet people who are focusing on these things. We always meet people who are focusing on those last parts of ego, the lust, the dosa, the avijja, which you get rid of at that last part, right? At that last part, that's who we meet. But thing is, that's a failing task, because we haven't done the necessary states. It is like that person, we've all met that person, he has very high hopes for himself, but the only thing he is really doing is crunching on pizza in front of the TV in his underwear the whole evening. Right? And he's talking about becoming a millionaire. What nonsense. He's talking about being the big shot. What nonsense. That is that true reflection of what spirituality seems like right now. Don't you think this is true? Right? The first steps we have to really focus on is this sakkaya ditthi, vichikiccha, silabbata paramasa. Through the Dhamma, remember, all of these Abhidhamma, the sutras that we are doing is nothing. It is absolutely, yes, it is Dhamma. But remember, that is knowledge up until that knowledge is now accepted through what we spoke about, where now it is able to really look at, point a hand at, finger at these three parts of your existence, of all of our existences. That is where the Dhamma comes in hand, or else the Dhamma is useless in that way, right? It is useless in that way, right? We know, I mean, how many doctors do we know? They see the worst of, illnesses each and every single day, right? They see the worst of illnesses each and every single day. You would assume that they would understand the Dhamma to far higher extents than even a monk, because they see the suffering of the body each and every single day. However, that is not really true, is it? That is not really true, right? It is not about how much of suffering you see in the world. If so, all the poor people, all the destitute people, all the people who go through, who have abusive partners, are all then enlightened by now. No, it doesn't happen that way. Vipassana. Are we able to do? We have the strength. Are we able to sort of really, in Sinhala we say Dakmitikala. I don't know what you say that, in English. That birya, that sort of that sense of birya towards insight, right? That sense of virya to be able to go to, because sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you do not want to go that deep, but then you push yourself. You're confident, and where you sometimes when you push yourself, you fall off the edge, but you fall off the edge where? Onto the Dhamma again. That is where the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, as much this respect that we speak about, is also your sort of protective barrier. That is that sort of inflatable protection that you have anytime that you go off the edge. That is your protection. Knowing that the Dhamma, that is that confidence that you build with the Dhamma. That is what allows monks and people who are very strong practitioners to go to the length that they do practice. That confidence in the Dhamma. That is why the confidence in the Dhamma is one of the prime aspects of, remember again, we often speak about the confidence in the Dhamma, unshakable confidence in the Dhamma, all of these things being results of that first state of enlightenment. No, it's the other way around. These are results of, those are, that reflects on you achieving enlightenment at that point. Where it becomes concrete is through that phala chitta, through the magga phala chittas that we have. That is where it becomes standstill. That is where you know, haha, this is that place. You're changed forever. That arises as a reflection of your qualities developing, first aiming towards sakkaya ditthi, vicikiccha, and silabbata paramasa. Let's go. Let's move on. Influxes. Influxes to be abandoned by restraint. Sambara paha tabba asava. Sambara paha tabba asava. Sambara is restraint, morality, sila. Pahatabba asava, the ashravas, the influxes that are abandoned due to or by the power of restraint. And what bhikkhus, page number 52, and what bhikkhus are the influxes to be abandoned by restraint? Sense restraint, custody of the senses. Here, sense restraint, custody of the senses. Here, bhikkhus, a monk dwells wisely restrained in the eye faculty. Bhikkhus, while influxes, vexation, and fever may arise in one who dwells unrestrained in the eye faculty. Even so, there are no influxes, vexation, or fever in one who dwells restrained in the eye faculty. In the eye faculty. Right? Now here, this restraint, remember, this restraint is not spoken of. This restraint is brought about again by samadhi. To be more specific, sati, mindfulness, right? And also remember that this restraint is spoken of as a duty onto the person who sees, not onto what is seen. That's very important to understand. Right? It is the duty of the person who sees, but not what is seen. Meaning, here, in this path or practice leading to enlightenment, we do not try or manure changes in people outside and try to create a sense of enlightenment through that. However, what we do or what we are taught to here do is to create the restraint through mindfulness, which leads to ashrava pahatabha, right? Ashrava pahatabha. Here, it is spoken of. It gives us now it is like these rules for corona, isn't it? Now there have been fines which have been brought in. There is the police patrols that have been brought in, the forces that have been brought in. In Sri Lanka, they got the defense involved, they got the CID intelligence involved. They were tracking people through intelligence to track down who had been associating whom and how the virus was spreading, you see. Right? They were doing all of these things. Right? Now in that this restraint that is spoken of, because of those fears, now because of the fear of being of having to be quarantined, right? The fear of being fined, the fear of being pulled up, the fear of all of those things, the fear of contracting the virus. We restrain ourselves. How do we restrain ourselves? We don't go out. We only go out because of a certain purpose that we can't avoid. All of these things, isn't it? That restraint has been created by multiple factors and faculties. One, the care that you have towards yourself and your family. Two, the care you might, if you have a bit of sense or care towards society, the care of not wanting to spread it and get rid of or get out of the situation that we as a country, as a world, are sort of suffering through. That also might affect people. Three, sometimes, the fine, I can't afford to be paying these extra fines, right? There are these things. In Dhamma, in similar way, there are the buyers which exist. Why do we not want to perform bad karmas? There is loko upavada baya. The fear of being insulted for the deeds that you have committed by society. Because society points a hand at you and says, oh, you did this, how disgusting that is. Society points a hand at you, so you're fearful. Loka upavada baya. Then you have the baya, the fear of karma, developing karmic resultants that will bring you suffering, right? Losing, the fear of losing what you have is another fear. All of these fears give you a sense of, no, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be caught doing it. I don't want to be associated with a person who does it at even. This is also created through vipassana. This is also created through vipassana. But remember, baya can arise out of wisdom. Baya can arise out of dosa, hatred, or sort of the hatred-rooted consciousnesses. It can arise because of both of those roots. The baya here is wisdom. However, right, wisdom, because why? That creates a support of confidence, not weakness. Baya as a result of, or fear as a result of the hatred-rooted consciousness devours, destroys your confidence. It weakens you. No, not in vipassana. That is also measurement for you to understand and know, am I doing the right thing here? Right? Meaning, am I nurtured? Are my strengths nurtured in the right way? Because sometimes if you're feeling a sense of weakness through Dhamma, you have most definitely, or you are doing something wrong for sure. Dhamma should be supporting the wholesome, so that in that support, you feel the confidence, the ability to not want something which brings harm to yourself in that manner, right? In that manner. That is what is reflected upon this sort of restraint that is spoken of, right? Yes, Dil.
Bhante, is this what we refer to as Hiriyotap, the beautiful universal factors in your chitta? Because the fear of not wanting to do wrong, but with confidence.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Dil, yeah, mute yourself. Okay. So then we have, moving on, restraint of the eye faculty. Even so, there are no influxes, vexation, or fever in one who dwells restrained in the eye faculty. He dwells wisely restrained in the ear faculty, while influxes, vexation, and fever may arise in one who dwells unrestrained in the ear faculty. So similar all the way down to the mind, right? All the way down to the mind. People go crazy for this, right? You must really understand people, and I mean that literally. There are people who lose their minds because of this. You must understand this restraint is not like being put into a prison. No, right? It is really a result of mindfulness. It is really a cognitive reprogramming structure which takes place, not telling no to everything, right? Not telling no to everything, not putting yourself into a cage in your life, which then sort of says no, 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 no to everything. No, this is not right. Right? This should be really a reflection of the Dhamma that you know, of the mindfulness that you practice, right? And putting in place, it will automatically roll out. Those two will then roll out the actions of wisdom, right? Or else you're going to absolutely hate the Dhamma, right? You're going to be using the Dhamma to do everything wrong in the world. You're going to be using the Dhamma to put people down. You're going to be using the Dhamma for each and every purpose that the Buddha said not to use the Dhamma for, right? Remember, this restraint that we are speaking of is a result of mindfulness. Is a result of mindfulness. Nothing else. Does anyone have any questions, any clarifications? If you don't agree with me, also, please let us know. Share your thoughts, right? Because I have had friends, honestly, even monks, actually, not lay people. Yes, some lay people as well, who I have seen going through pathetic downs that they shouldn't have gone because of the way that they have understood the Dhamma, right? Because of the way that they have understood the Dhamma. Enormous amounts of pain, enormous amounts of regret, and enormous amounts of delusion. And because they have held on to the Dhamma in wrong ways. I think I told you of a friend who stood the whole night in the same spot because his flashlight, the batteries went empty, and he was afraid of stepping on insect and killing them and breaking the seal. So he stood there in the forest the whole night. The whole entire night he stood there, not moving an inch, because he was afraid of breaking the seal. Right? People go through immense. I have seen monks crying, grown men crying because of this restraint. This is a reflection of mindfulness, right? It really is a reflection of mindfulness, or else the Dhamma is very sadist. The Dhamma, or else, is very sadist to expect mundane human beings like you and I to be doing all of this. In a world where we have to travel out, we have to go out, we have to raise our eyes and look, the Dhamma would be then impractical. No. This is not about whitewashing the world. This is about having the wisdom to understand the world, not at face value, but for the deeper values that it truly holds beyond that face value. Where when you see a person lustfully dancing, you understand that person even deeper than that person understands themselves. But you are not confined to your pattern of thinking. You know, I might be wrong, but this is what I think. This is what it seems like. where you have that openness of mind. Because remember, Dhamma does not make you hard, concrete. Dhamma is flexible. It's open. It's the wind. It's a beautiful warm breeze. It comforts you. If it is bringing you suffering, you are doing something wrong. You are doing something wrong, right? And you are doing something wrong. Let's move on. So we have gone through, we don't have to go through all the senses, right? It is the same thing up to from the eyes to the mind, right? From the eyes to the mind. Then, even so, in the mind, however, in the mind, the restraint is now, remember, the mind is always last in restraint. Why is that? The mind is always last because the mind cognizes and works with objects which have been taken in and perceived through the five senses. When restraint has been applied to the five senses, the mind automatically restrains itself. Remember, Kaya Samvara brings Chitta Samvara. Kaya Viveka brings Chitta Viveka. What does this mean? When the body is in a place of calm, tranquility, peace, the mind is automatically at calm, tranquility, and peace. When the body is in a place that it can protect its morals, its values, stick to goodness, the mind automatically is in a place of goodness and all of that, right? Now, when you would, I remember telling my teacher when I was first started going to these forest monasteries, skipping school and stuff like that. And then I told my teacher one day, oh, it's really easy to protect the sila when you're in the monastery. And she said, yes, but that's not good enough. And I was like, why? Because your life is not a monastery, right? We have to live in the city. Your life is in the city. So you have to, the monastery, that is only temporary. You have to be able to protect your sila whilst you're in the city, right? And that gave me the thing that, oh, that is quite true, right? I was only able to be compassionate because there was no reason to be angry. I was only sort of subdued in my wants because there was nothing to want there. There was nothing to get more. It was a forest monastery. What are you supposed to get from there in terms of, materials? I wasn't craving for TV or games or anything like that. Why? Because there is no TV and games there, right? So that is then a reflection of where you are, And that is not a true reflection of what you are. Whilst the environment that you are in can affect you, basing your practice on that environment is a mistake. That is why monks who are practitioners and trainers, right, travel from forest to forest, monastery to monastery. Back in the day, a monk who stays too long in one place was looked down upon. It was like a pond that does not, where the water does not move around. That's the example which is used. The water becomes, it sort of smells and it sort of does all of that. It's not good. There must be some sort of circulation that happens in the pond, right? Some sort of circulation. In the same way, the person who stays in one place for too long, it is said, that person loses that light, loses that sort of, especially for a monk, because a monk is really supposed to explore different parts of the mind. And sometimes to explore those different parts of the mind, you have to go to different places, right? Because, for example, living in your house, living in the temple, for example, here in Colchester, or you at your house, we are not going to experience the fears of the insects, the fears of the nature, the fears of, all of those parts. We are not going to be pushed in that sort of a way. Likewise, the monks in the forest are not going to be pushed into the fears that arise or the things that you have to face in a city. So often the Buddha says, move around, move around. That is how you polish yourself, right? That is how you polish yourself and get to know. So we do not, the Buddha has not told us to completely, actually the Buddha has told that it is completely impossible for a monk to completely recluse in sort of, come out from society, because you have to feed yourself at the end of the day, right? So in this way, the mind faculty is always large, because the mind contemplates and is a result of what you have taken in, right? What you have cognized through the five senses. Moving on, page number 53. Influxes to be abandoned by reflective use, patisevana pahatabhasava. And what bhikkhus are the influxes to be abandoned by reflective use? By reflective use. Reflection on monastic robe, reflection on food, reflection on lodging, and reflection on medicines, right? On medicines. Now, this is a very important part. And for bhikkhus, it is said, if a bhikkhu is to use any of these four without reflection, each and every moment includes a apatti, offense of wrongdoing, right? Each and every moment of use, from the starting of its use, incurs if offense of wrongdoing, right? What is this? So the first one is, why is patisankha yoniso chivaram patisevami? Why is he reflecting? He uses the robe only for warding off heat, only for the sake of warding off cold, for the sake of warding off the touch of mosquitoes, flies, the wind, the sun, the creeping creatures, for the purpose of covering up the privies out of moral shame. And then we have, now this must be this can be practiced, or should be practiced, or these are the ways that we keep on track, right? Because often when we go along a certain path, we tend to allow ourselves certain other things. However, this is a way of practice, or in this way of practice of reflective use enables whatever that we use, we are aware of it. We do not sort of glide along the flow of unnecessary use, which is really tanha. Keeping to what you absolutely require and need, right? For those of us who suffer from problems of, eating disorders sometimes, or so gluttony, can't stop eating, all of these things that, things like this, or sometimes, shopping. Sometimes when we, every time that we are sad or we are upset, we tend to shop for something, or we want to buy something. We love going to the supermarkets and just buying stuff, right? Or even lodging or medicines or whatever it is. The reflection upon these objects of use that we often use allows one to create a sense of togetherness with the practice, knowing that what we are using is essential for our sort of being, right? Is essential for our being. Now, one would then say, okay, Bhante, okay, robes, we as lay people, if you are a person who goes out a lot, if you are a person who, has to appear within corporate circles or events and functions and all of these things, how do we do it? The thing is, it doesn't tell you not to do it. What it tells you is reflect the purpose of doing it. That should be understood. The Dhamma does not tell you, remember that Vishaka, an example that I love to use, Vishaka, the Palandanava, the dress which was adorned by gems and diamonds and crystals, right? Which was used by her, and she left it back at the monastery because she took it off, right? One would say, that this is that an arahant, one would say in terms of culture, that one would just simply and all of that, to reflect enlightenment. But look at Vishaka, she was enlightened. What are we talking about? right? What are we talking about? That is where we then question Silabhata Paramasa, right? Where we question Silabhata Paramasa. Because at the end of the day, it is the Dhamma being known as, now if we Google Theravada Buddhism, in most places on the internet, Theravada Buddhism has been reflected as a part of practice that is for monastics only, right? Whereas practices such as Mahayana Buddhism and Zen Buddhism have been acknowledged and sort of been spoken about as traditions that can be widely practiced by lay people and monastics alike. I feel like the Theravada practice is more realistic than any of the other practices, honestly, right? However, because of this Silabhata Paramas and all of this culture nonsense that we have guided into it, I feel like we have lost the plot. And we have made it so impractical to a sense where, young people are not attracted to it, right? People come into it either because, they have gone through a massive load of suffering, so they want to find some sort of solace. They have come into it through meditation that they have done, or, something of that sort, or else people really come into Theravada Buddhism, right? Because we have all of these cultural implications upon the religion, where now the practice just does not make sense for a person who has not been brought up within that culture. And Vishaka is a clear example of that. Right? The lives of Vishaka, the lives of Anathapindika, the lives of many other kings and queens are good reflections of how our cultures, how what we believe is true Buddhist life is really nothing to do with Dhamma. And really all it is doing is turning people away. Really what it is doing is turning people away. Right? Because of the impractical nature that it has, for example, for a person who lives in a country like this, for a person who might live as a part of an upper class society, or a society where you do go out and you have to do it. It becomes very impractical. Remember that the Buddha does not tell us to not do or not do specific thing. What he says is reflect upon what you are doing. What is the purpose behind it? And the reason why you do not do it is not because of the Buddha's sake. It's not because of the Dhamma's sake. It is for the sake of your health. Right? It is for the sake of your sanity. It is for the sake of the goodness in your life. The Panchasila. It is not for the Buddha. It is not for the Sangha. It is for your stability of mind. It is for your sanity. If you have to live every moment in your life looking over your shoulders and fearing that people that you have done wrong to are going to come behind you, what kind of life is that? If you have a beautiful family and you are busy getting drunk all the time and you're intoxicated half of the time, you can't remember half the things that happen. What is your life? It's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. If you need a drink to enjoy your family, enjoy your loved one, what is your life? It is absolutely pathetic, right? It is a reflection for your happiness. It is a reflection of the respect that you have towards yourself and towards other people. That is where this comes in. It now, things that you have now, you have more respect for it because now the things that you have in your life have a purpose. Right? Now the things that you have in your life, you have true purpose. How do you build that? How do you build that? Through the reflection of the use of your clothes, the reflection of the use of your food, the reflection of use of lodging, the reflection of use of your medicine, right? Of your medicine. Through those, now these are the things that we consume and nourish this body by. Through those usages, look here, if a person reflects upon the food and only is very aware when one consumes food, you will not be overweight. Or neither will you be malnourished. It is through reflection of food. Now, the problem with Sangha being overweight and sort of having cholesterol and diabetes, it's a clear reflection that there is no Dhamma within the Sangha as much as it used to be. When you go, and this is a reflection of that, right? If one is to go, yes, I know, hard comment, but true. If one is to go into a forest monastery where there is a lot of practice at Park, you barely find anyone who is overweight. Everyone is healthy. Everyone is fit. Everyone does their exercises. Similar in Sri Lanka, all the forest monasteries, you rarely find a monk who is overweight. This is a reflection of awareness. Why? Because when we are sad, we eat. When we are sad, we sometimes do not eat. We sort of go take the bottle up, right? We do all of these things. Why? Because of the lack of awareness. It is through influxes to be abandoned by reflective practices gets rid of all of that. Now you don't have to focus on eating or anything. You just have to reflect. The Buddha says, now do one thing. Consume these 4 things with reflection. That is it. Other things you can forget. You can forget about the quantity of food, you forget about all of that. Just be aware while you're eating. Why is it that I'm eating this? Do you really need that muffin? Do you really need that brownie? Do you really need those extra things that you add along the day? You really don't need it. But what are you doing through it? You are, with the lack of mindfulness and awareness, you're stuffing your face. You're stuffing your face. Right? This is where this reflection comes in. It is an absolute, people take this reflection of food, all of these courses on for sort of to help overeaters and all of the plus size and all of these courses that are available out here in the West and in the East, all take this reflection. They bring more awareness through those courses to what is consumed. With lodging, right? Remember that each and everything in society, we tend to judge people in the way that they are dressed, in the way that they are kept. However, in Dhamma, the Buddha, yes, he says, there is something called a proper dress code. There is, you have to look presentable. All of that is mentioned by the Buddha. The Buddha has not dismissed anything, but the Buddha says, do not let that now govern your life. Don't live for the satisfaction of others. Do not let that satisfaction be your satisfaction, because it really isn't. It is only avijja which has now confused your incentives, right? That is where those are the influxes, and the reflection allows you to get rid of those influxes, right? The reflection allows you to get rid of those influxes. Is that understood? Samantha, what Vishaka did was she wore a piece of jewelry which covered the whole body. It was a dress, and sometimes you might think, oh, this is not, this is somewhat weird, but actually it is not. Now in Burma, I have seen people, wealthy people, who wear jewelry like that, who wear jewelry which adorns the whole body, right? And jewelry which adorns the whole body, and it is not rare in countries like that where they have a lot of gems and jewelry and all of these things. So what she did was, and when she was doing some work in the monastery, she removed that piece of jewelry and kept it aside, and she forgot to take it back when she left the monastery. So what she then did is, because she had this moral code of not ever sort of taking back something from a monastery out of the faith that she had towards the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha, what she did was she bought it. She bought her own piece of jewelry. And with that money that she offered to the monastery to buy that piece of jewelry back, she built a monastery for the Sangha again, with that amount of money that went into buying that piece of jewelry. Right. So that is what happened, Samantha.
And also, Bhante, Bhante was saying about the food in monks. I don't know. Maybe I should not ask this question, but I thought monks are supposed to be having one meal a day or two, isn't it? So then, sorry, and then should you get? Then why are they big then? Sorry. That's what I couldn't understand, because
Well, well,
normally, yeah.
the thing is, no, there is no rule as such that they should only be eating one meal a day, really. They can eat however many meals that they want, but
Oh.
the rule is that they have to consume and finish consuming before noon, or before sunset. So according to country, the noon, then it is really sunset. So certain countries it can be before or after 12, whilst in other countries it can be before and after 12 again. It all depends on the sunset. So um so um so why are they overweight? Good question. Because I mean, we tend to eat our feelings, you see.
Hmm.
Right. And you see, even when I moved to London, I was quite skinny, and then I became obese whilst I was living in a couple of the temples, and now you see I'm getting back into shape, which is a good sign that I'm living out my life with Dhamma. Because you see, in monk's life, the only one of those things that you can really indulge in, and you have one of the least rules of indulging is food, right? Because why is that? Because food is a necessity. You survive on food. However, we can also abuse food, and sort of, and when you have nothing much good in your life, you tend to then eat food to make you feel comfortable,
Hmm.
and that happens a lot. And that's not just for monks. That's for any person,
Hmm.
right? For any person. So um, yes, so it is really for any person. So that is when we are not really mindful, right? And it
Hmm.
is quite a shame, really, because when you are mindful, when you do have that practice, and when you have a lot of good things in your life, you don't need to do that, right? Because you are full, your belly is full with happiness in a way.
Yeah, the reason I asked that was because in my experience, the only way I lose weight is when I go on my retreats. So because we're not allowed to eat anything after 12,
Yeah.
so one meal, and then I realized, oh yeah, after 10 days, that's it. But then I go back to my normal afterwards. So that's why I just couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
I mean, what the Buddha says now, remember again in this sutta, the Buddha's approach to this is he doesn't tell you not to eat. He doesn't tell you to do that. He says contemplate on the purpose and only take what you need, right? Only take what you need. So
Yeah.
in some monasteries, they do this thing where you are not allowed a second serving, right? But you see also there is this thing with monks, which actually I forgot about, because I've been serving myself for the past 8 months. This thing, because of corona, of course, this thing where people do serve the monks is really bad, actually, because because the second servings, and sometimes people force this on the monks also, and then when they say no, people are like "Ane hamdurne, ane hamdurne, khanna hamdurne." But this is all right if it's just one day, but this is our life. This is 7 days, 7 days each and every day of the week, right? And because of that sense of, again, selfishness, really, and to sort of course, selfishness, but in a masquerading factor of 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 karuna, you know because I remember I in Sri Lanka, I this happened to me actually, which was quite funny. I accepted um, I I accepted a dish from I accepted a dish, and I did not accept the dish which was served before or after, right? So I was the dish which was before and after, and then after a month or so, this thing came back to me, where the devotees were saying, or this they were poor-minded people, for sure, poor-minded in the sense poor-minded, not poor, poor-minded. So they were saying things like this, where I like. So the dish was apparently served by a young girl, right? And they were saying, okay, Bhante, served himself from that dish because it was served by this person and by this person. And this happens very often, right? This happens very often where people assume, things like that as well. So what do the monks do? They often tend to sort of treat everyone equally because of, things like that. Now, in my mind, there was nothing to do with the person serving it. It was to do with what was being served. Right? So there was this story, and I was shocked to hear that. So since then, of course, I am a little bit more cautious, right, on what I get served and who is carrying the dish, because people think in very poor ways sometimes. And there are all of these, again, these cultural things. Now, if you, for example, take the Thai tradition, where they often serve themselves, the Burmese tradition, where they often serve themselves. Now, this is because our lives are quite, it's abundant with the things that we get. So we need to really be careful. So those traditions have gone into practices such as that. So yes, I would have to say, in certain places, although even monks are careful sometimes, because of the devotees, also there is an issue, right? Because the devotees also, there is an issue. So that I forgot completely about that, right? So, but of course, if you're strong, you can of course say no, but then the devotees become really upset and they complain and all of that. So it is quite a messy situation, really, and quite sad, because when you would say, when especially Buddhist monks, who their primary nature is to be restrained themselves, and you see obesity everywhere, right? It is quite sad, because that is a very poor reflection upon the practice and upon the doctrine we should have been practiced, isn't it? That's both a poor reflection now, I would say, on both the monks and as well as the lay people, right? As well as the lay people. So saying that, let's move on. Right. So reflection on monastic, the robe, the food, lodging, and medicine, right? And this reflection, remember, this reflection is also a way of curbing tanha, right? For things that you want, and being able to satisfy yourself with the things that you just need in life to sustain your life, right? To sustain your life. Because sometimes, because of the inert nature of comparison, we often, although we might have enough, we are still unhappy because we don't have as much as that person. We might not have as much as our parents did, or we, all of these things that come up. And this sort of reflection allows one to be aware that we have enough to live. We have enough to be happy. We have enough for our family. And because it is so, we can be happy. We don't have to be sort of, running behind things that we do not need, right? And things that we would have to sacrifice a lot to get, you know? So from that side as well. So moving on, page number 54. Bhikkhus. While the influxes, shall we read through those four though, right? For those. So the monastic robe. Wisely reflecting, he uses the robe only for warding off heat, for the sake of warding off cold, for the sake of warding off the touch of mosquitoes, flies, the wind, the sun, the creeping creatures, for the purpose of covering up the privies out of moral shame. Food, reflection on food. Wisely reflecting, he uses alms food, not for amusement, not for intoxication, not for fattening, not for beautifying, but only for keeping this body going and enduring, for ending hunger pangs, for the sake of supporting the holy life, considering thus I shall get rid of an old feeling and not let a new feeling arise, and so that I will be healthy and blameless and live at ease. And live at ease. Okay, live at ease, meaning not having that sort of stomach where you have to take a nap, comatose. Comatose with food. Right. Reflection on lodging. Wisely reflecting, he uses lodging only for warding off cold, for warding off heat, for warding off the touch of mosquitoes, flies, the wind, the sun, and creeping creatures, only for avoiding weather hazards, for the purpose of enjoying solitude. Right? Wisely reflecting, he uses support for the sick and medical requisites, only for warding off feelings of illness that have arisen, only for the sake of non-affliction. Because while the influxes, while the influxes, while the influxes, vexation and fever may arise for one from unreflective use. Even so, there are no influxes, vexation, or fever for him for reflective use. These bhikkhus are the influxes that are to be abandoned by reflective use. Next, influxes to be abandoned by endurance. Adisevana pahata bhasava. What bhikkhus are the influxes to be abandoned by endurance? Here bhikkhus, monk, wisely reflecting, bears heat, cold, hunger, thirst, the touch of mosquitoes, flies, the wind, the sun, and creeping creatures. He endures the ways of words ill-spoken, unwelcome, and arisen bodily feelings that are painful, racking, sharp, piercing, repugnant, disagreeable, deadly. Because while influxes, vexation, and fever may arise in one who lacks endurance, even so there are no influxes, vexation, or fever in one who endures them. These bhikkhus are the results, the influxes that are abandoned by endurance. Now, this is a very powerful tool that we often practice every day. Now, as monks, because we often eat one meal, or we might have meditated and we are really hungry and our stomachs are groveling with hunger. We have to, standing on a Pindapata line. Now at PAOK, I remember the Pindapata line. On the Pindapata line, we have 1,000 odd bhikkhus, 1,000 odd bhikkhus. And you have to be in your place according to Vasa, right? According to Vasa. So the juniors are right at the back. Right? The juniors are right at the back. So the juniors often, we don't get all the dishes also. We might get one or two because it finishes often. Right? And that is endurance, you see. Right? And you're really hungry, or like sometimes you're really annoyed as well. Sometimes you're really annoyed as well. You're like, where is that bell ringer? Sometimes I remember if the monk who is supposed to ring sort of hit there's a sort of trunk of wood that you had to hit hard, and that is the signal for us to start for the Pindapata line to start. And some days this guy runs about a minute or two late or even more, and we are all complaining. We all know when he's late because we are all hungry. However, we never see the elder bhikkhus complaining, or they are hungrier than us because most of them are one meal, right? So they are hungry but they never complain. And that is how we learned not to complain, right? Not to complain. So because of them, actually, we learn, right? And you have to go slowly. You have to do all of that. That is a restraint through endurance. Right? That is the restraint through endurance. Sometimes when we need medicine, right? Sometimes, we often, now in Sri Lanka, it was actually quite convenient, but in Burma, it was not, because medicine is a bit of a difficult thing when you have so many nuns and monks. So you have to really, you can only go if it is really, really, if you're really bad, right? If it is, if it is just a fever or something, it's like here where you're just given sort of Pandos or something like that, and which is good. But for us living in Asia, you being used to taking all these powerful pills to sort of, get rid of your illness quickly, you are asked to endure because you're not given that privilege, right? In that way, going through also, when you meditate, not moving every time that you have a sensation rising, every time that you have pain, enduring that, because that pain is a reflection of the hindrances more than it is of the pain, right? We are not saying that it is not pain. It is pain, but the pain is a reflection of the hindrances more than it is of the actual pain, right? More than it is of the actual pain. So we endure. And when you do endure, you come to a point where it suddenly just disappears, right? Whether it's the pain or something of that sort, you bring your mind to allow it to now not bother you, right? That is the abandonment of influxes through endurance. In the meditation, I remember, especially in Sri Lanka, where we have a lot of mosquitoes, and when you start meditating, you have so many mosquitoes biting at you, right? And if you don't have a net, if you don't have one of those nets, you're really going to have you're really going to be food for the mosquitoes. But the moment that you get into samadhi, the mosquitoes don't bite you. Right? The moment that you get into it is actually quite a miraculous thing in a way. The mosquitoes don't bite you. When you're in samadhi, the mosquitoes don't bite you. And I have really seen this in our meditation sort of areas. I have seen, monks sitting right next to each other, and I've seen, one monk who's completely covered in mosquitoes, and the other monk, his shoulders are open, his chest is open, sometimes because we meditate often without anything on top also, so our chest, because it can be hot or whatnot, and their upper bodies are completely exposed, but no mosquitoes whatsoever, right? The other monk, everything is covered up, only the face and the part of the shoulder is open, but he's completely covered in mosquitoes. And the other monk is actually, quite advanced in his meditation, right?
Mm.
And it has been something that we have seen to have that effect, right? And we refer to it as different things, metta and all of these things, but I think it's just the power of samadhi, really.
Yeah, actually, sorry, Bante. Just want to quickly say, because Ajahn Brahm actually said that the reason why is because when you're in deep samadhi, I think you produce less carbon dioxide, I think it is, and then the mosquitoes are not attract. They don't come. Something to do with that. On
Love
the opposite, yeah.
explanation. How lovely is that? Okay. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Samantha. Padma, you have unmuted yourself.
No. I think I haven't muted myself. I'm on the phone. That's why.
Okay, lovely. All right. So then, anyone has any questions? Okay. Then, influxes to be abandoned by avoidance. And what bhikkhus are the influxes to be abandoned by avoidance? Here, bhikkhus, a monk, wisely reflecting, avoids a wild elephant, avoids a wild horse, avoids wild cattle, avoid avoids a wild dog, a snake, a thorny spot, a I don't know what that chasm, a cliff, a cesspit, a sewer, whatever place that is suitable for sitting, whatever place that is unsuitable for going, whatever kind of association with bad friends, whatever it is unsuitable with bad friends, that wise colleagues in the holy life were to firmly regard as a basis for evil, wisely reflecting, he avoids that place that is unsuitable for sitting, that place that is unsuitable for going, that kind of association with bad friends, bhikkhus. While influxes, vexation, and fear may arise in one who does not avoid such things, even so there are no influxes, vexation, or fever in one who avoids. In these bhikkhus are the influxes to be abandoned by avoidance. Abandoned by avoidance. So people, so this would reflect on the people that we associate, on the people that we choose to have companionship with, the people that, or the places that we often socialize, and all of these things, which is, I think, is quite clear. um, I remember even when we were going on Pindapata, we would have roads that we would not go on. One particular scenario was, there was this, it was actually a monk's house, and the monk's family had a dog. Actually, no, there was a wild dog living around that house. So this wild dog, when the monks would go on Pindapata, this wild dog would charge at them and try to bite them. And I think the dog had bit a monk previously. And I remember a monk coming back from that road, and that monk whose house was there, and the family lived there, he came and complained to the monk and said, "Can't you tell your family to get rid of that dog?" And then he was like, "Why?" Obviously, this monk, it was so sweet, he was obviously distressed, because what has happened was this dog had charged at him. And now, because we are supposed to really behave, not everyone is allowed to go on Pindapata, and because you have to really be able to maintain composure in events such as this. And you won't imagine, very, very weird things happen to monks who go on Pindapata, and you have to be mentally ready to be able to face these things, right? And this dog had charged at this venerable, and this venerable had to sort of ward off, because you can't run. You can't run. So what this venerable had done is he had taken his patre, right? He had taken, which is in a case, if you remember, it has a case and you can hold it. There's a sort of a cloth case, isn't it, with a handle that you sort of put over your shoulder. And he had taken that and sort of swung it around. And we, listening to this, we were having the time of our life, laughing, because the image of a monk going on Pindapata and swinging the patre and swinging the patre on the road, trying to ward off a dog, was absolutely hilarious. So while I was reading this, that came into my mind. And this happens a lot. And even in certain occasions, the wild elephants come behind us and sort of, sometimes they don't really attack us, but, they do ask for food. So then we had to throw some food out of our bowls for the wild elephants. And this was a thing in Yala when I was living briefly at Nimalava. The wild elephants would be all over. But when the lay people come, there was a trishaw driver who had come into the monastery for something, to meet the head monk. I don't remember what he came in for. But he had picked up some vade from, those little vades with the umbalakada in the middle. Lovely little pieces. So these vades, and in the small silly bag, right? And he had eaten most of it, and he had 3 remaining in the bag. And the elephant came in, and he had eaten this out of the bag because the trishaw driver was inside. And maybe because there was only 3, the elephant with his trunk squashed the trishaw. Maybe because it was only 3 vades. He wanted more, probably. And he squashed the trishaw and he left in anger, of course, but the elephants would never do that to the monks. And even the snakes, actually, the snakes would also never harm the monks. The snakes would just cross in front of us, or they would usually, the sort of the cone of the door, the snakes would be curled up in the morning, because it's a bit, colder in the edge of that sort of meeting place of the toe, and they would never really harm us, and we would just walk over them. And all these sort of beautiful experiences actually. So when I'm reading this, I remember all of these things, which was a really beautiful time.
Why is that? Oh, sorry, Bhante. Why is that? Is that because do you have metta towards the animals or something?
I think it is just because one thing is we smell of the forest, I think. The other thing is we also, we are not agitated by their existence. We are quite used to the animals who are living, who are there, which is, and also I think they know, having lived and seen these monks and having lived in their company in the forest for so many years, I think they're also used to us in a way, right? But there are certain occasions when when certain, even the dogs in the monastery, when certain people come in, they would bark and howl and all of that. So I think they do pick up on the vibrations of the monks and all of that. So there was, I think, in this monastery, Arida Mahampro's monastery in Sri Lanka, there was only one occasion where a monk was bit. Actually, two occasions, and both of those occasions were when the monk had accidentally stepped on the snake, literally. So it's I think it's really to do with a number of reasons. But anyways,
Thank you.
The influxes to be done or to be abandoned through or by avoidance. So let's continue the rest of the sutta next time. But I think it's a beautiful sutta, and it's really nice to sort of really contemplate on how this sutta could be applicable to us, right? Could be applicable to us, and how we could train ourselves in this practice. That's the important part of this, right? So thank you very much. I will see you all on Saturday, right? Take care and good night.
Everyone, Bhante.
Good night.
Thank you, Bhante.